Upgrades.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. This film here is another brilliant performance by Anthony Hopkins. That's all you can say. But the name of this film here is One Life. And here's a quick synopsis. A British stockbroker visits Prague in the 1930s and forms plans to assist in the rescue of Jewish children before the onset of World War II. And this one is directed by James Hawes. It stars Anthony Hopkins, Johnny Flynn, Helena Bonham Carter, and Jonathan Pryce. From the onset of this film, I did not know much about the story of Nicholas Winton. I knew nothing about his actual story here. The film does a great job of giving you two parallel timelines. We get the older Nicholas and we get the younger Nicholas as he's visiting Prague for the first time right before the onset of the war with his mom, who's played by Helena, being extremely concerned about him even going over there. Once he gets there and he sees the conditions that children, families are living in, it invokes a passion within him that he feels he has to do something and comes up with this amazing plan to get as many Jewish people away from Prague as humanly possible before the effects of World War II will make it impossible for them to live on. At times, it feels just like a documentary film that you would see on a streaming network or just a network television. It really sets its way up that way. But what helps separate this is Mr. Anthony Hopkins. As we switch between him and Johnny Flynn, who are playing the same character here, just at different points of their lives, when we see the younger Nicholas, we see the passion portrayed by Johnny of him just wanting to make sure all these kids are going to be safe. And you feel that. Granted, it's not at times the most believable aspects of the film, but you still understand his passion. It's when we flip to the elder Nicholas, down to his wife complaining about him bringing home everything humanly possible, or his wife complaining that their place is too messy. And we transform to a film that is showing Nicholas going through all the things in his house, trying to get rid of the clutter. And this was when we get the flashback. This is when we get the emotional elements of what he's done taking shape and form here. And that's when this film succeeds at. Anthony Hopkins is devastating in this film. The entire time you see it, we see a man who, granted, he saved so many lives, but you feel the regret of something in him. And when that is revealed by the third act, what that regret is, it makes it even more powerful that this is a man who was just never happy with, I saved so many people. He only thought about the people he couldn't save. And when we get that performance from Anthony Hopkins in some of the most powerful scenes humanly possible, it's a setup in the third act of something that happens with Nicholas later on in life, and just the emotions behind Anthony Hopkins' character when that happens is so great. James Hawes does an amazing job of framing certain shots just around Anthony Hopkins' face, where we get just those visceral reaction to things that are happening in Nicholas' life. That's what makes this film great. Granted, the first part of this film, again, it's not the strongest element of it. At times, it can feel just like a made-for-television film because of those elements. But again, when you flip to the elder Nicholas and what he's going through, his conversations with his wife, who always wants to protect him, that's when we get to the powerful parts of this film. That's when we get to the parts of understanding just how great Anthony Hopkins is at taking a role that could have come across as so minuscule, because most of the action happens with the younger Nicholas. It's not with the older Nicholas. But just Anthony's ability to take the smallest of scenes at times and turn them and make them so powerful. It's one scene in particular where he meets with a diplomat's wife, and they're going over this book that Nicholas created of how he kept track of the children. He kept track of the children he gave away to the families to help save them, because that was part of his effort. Is not only did Nicholas have to put a plan in place to save these Jewish children, he also had to raise funds for these Jewish children. He also had to make sure they all had foster parents, and all the foster parents had to sign off before they could even come into the country to be saved. And we see it through this book of everything that Nicholas did to save these children's lives. And then when we get to certain parts of the book, that the pages are blank or that the kids' faces aren't marked out, meaning that he found a home for them. And we see these elements in this short conversation. The amount of emotion that Anthony Hopkins pulls off is amazing. And it becomes extremely powerful. And that's what pushes this film forward. Again, the earlier stuff is really good. Johnny Flynn, who plays the earlier Nicholas, he's really solid in doing so. It just feels like it's made for television while he's doing it. But when you flip to Anthony Hopkins doing it later on in life, playing Nicholas, it just separates this film completely and makes it something that you have to watch. Because again, just like a lot of films so far in this festival, this is a story that a lot of people don't know. Maybe if you're a British citizen, you most likely know this story. But being from America is a chance you don't know anything about this story. And just to see this story and to hear the glimpse of what Nicholas did to save children, to save people, is amazing and something that I wish that everyone could see and marvel at this feat of humanity that is still unbelievable to me, even after seeing this film and studying up on this person, this man, and his greatness. But one life brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. Out of a possible 10, I am going to give One Life an 8 out of 10. This is a solid film. If the first act or so, or the younger Nicholas sections wasn't as shaky as they are at times, because it just feels too by the numbers, I think this would have been a slam dunk, the best film of the year. Because the second portions of it with Anthony Hopkins and the older Nicholas are perfect. But combine them together, you really get a solid film here with an award caliber performance by Anthony Hopkins. And that's something that I think everyone needs to see and can wish to get even more of, because this man is a treasure when he's on film. And even in the slightest roles, he could bring such charisma and power into characters that you wouldn't expect to get those characteristics out of. And that's what he does here. So check it out when it's released and let us know what you think. This has been another JVS movie review brought to you from the Toronto Film Festival. Peace, people.